And here we go. It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, that's enough. Yeah.
Hey guys, there's someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports, represented by T. Scott Jones. Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney from Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
We're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, here we go. It is the madness, March Madness, and we've got plenty to talk about as Tennessee's able to top Wofford and advance to play UCLA in round number 2. We'll have a preview of UCLA. Also, we will talk about the concerns versus Wofford that I will dig into. I think it's a situation in which beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and what you think of Wofford. How good do you think they were in retrospect? I think that determines how much credit you give the Vols in a game in which they did not cover the 18.5-point spread, but were able to win comfortably and led for the entire game other than 13 seconds. Whereas Tennessee's post game, I know this is a stunner, but Georgia has players getting arrested because of cars. Stop the presses. Stat of the day and this day in Tennessee sports history. We're joined each and every Friday right off the top with Will West of the Sports Animal, who I've gotten to know well this week, sitting in a couple of times for Tyler Ivins. Will, how are you, sir?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you being on board. We'll just go ahead and
I'm doing well, too, by the way. Dave never asked how I was doing.
Caleb, how are you, man?
Thank you, Will. Dave never bothers to ask his co-host.
When we get somebody right off the top and I got all these buttons to push, I'm just like, I just want to welcome Will.
You ever had a spouse who's like, you ever get annoyed when your spouse is more enamored with your friends than you? And it's like, what the heck? That's how Dave is my partner and my co-host on the show. But, the guest comes, he's like, oh, they're hotter than you, Caleb.
All right, it is time for today's tough question. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios and driving the Jeep this morning. It's fantastic. New and used. East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. That means an easy buying process for you, and that means great prices as well. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Banks & Jones brings you today's tough question.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now, take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun.
All right, here we go. The question is pretty simple. Did Chaz Lanier turn a corner in his play against Wofford? Let's begin with Will. I saw a lot of jump shots. I don't know if he turned the corner or not, but he sure seemed more clutch than I ever dreamed. Will, your thoughts?
No, I think he had a hot hand and he hit shots, and he can do that also the way Wofford defended him, especially early. I thought that it allowed him to play in space. That's what he does, and why Chaz Lanier, you've seen, I think, ups and downs, is when you play in space, he's very comfortable with that. When you want to slow it down, half court, grind things out, I don't think he's as comfortable doing that. So I don't think he turned a corner last night. I think he had a team that defended him, especially early, in a way that played to his strengths. I thought that was the worst game I've seen Tennessee play since the Florida game. That was, and I'm talking about just the basic stuff, right? Like just the thing every basketball coach you've ever had in your entire life's told you to do, which is don't go off your man to double team and leave the open shooter. They did that. Don't forget about the corner three because you rotated over too quickly. I thought they left a million corner threes open. Wofford just didn't hit them. I thought, when the ball went up, how many times do you see a Tennessee player put a body on somebody when the ball was up? You didn't, right? And now they're good at crashing the boards, and that's okay. And they got to win because you're better than Wofford. That was not a good performance. I didn't love that when Chaz hit a few early, and we had more than a few. When he hit a number of shots early, then what did you see? You saw him shooting over his defender instead of utilizing the ball screen and maybe getting a better looking shot when he started missing some. The game was never in doubt. You were never going to lose to Wofford. Man, you got to get it together. I just was, and I told you this yesterday, Dave, when you filled in on our show. Maybe the best thing for them is that they get a little bit of a scare, and so I think hopefully they got a little bit of a scare, but you got to play higher IQ basketball than that. This is you're too well coached. You're too good at players. Again, everything that your coach told you playing basketball from the 4th grade on, Tennessee just didn't do those things because they knew they could out-athlete them. And I thought Chaz Lanier defensively did not have a great game. I thought offensively, he had the hot hand early. And then I thought he took some really dumb shots instead of utilizing his ball screens, which would have created the space for him that he needed.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that, because I had a issue with the way Tennessee's defense played too, mostly because I had a parlay of Wofford not scoring 50 points and Tennessee covering the 23 points or the 17-point spread, 18-point spread. And if Tennessee bothered to stay on their man on the 3-point shots, I would have been right. But so I'm very angry with that. But as far as Chaz Lanier goes, can we give him credit on this? And I get what you're saying. He's more comfortable in space and things like that. But, you know, I've seen all year Chaz Lanier really shrink in the biggest moments. It really stood out to me that, for instance, against Auburn in the regular season, Rick Barnes called the game-winning shot for Zakai Ziegler, not Chaz Lanier. The Kentucky game, the loss at home, I thought he just took himself out. There was a big issue with Texas where Rick Barnes dialed up a play for him and he passed up the shot. And then there's the Vanderbilt game where all he had to do was hit a free throw to send it to overtime, and he missed when the game was on the line. So all of that being said, I know it's against Wofford, terrible opponent, but this is his first NCAA tournament game ever. He never had one at North Florida. And he was willing to fire it up every time. Doesn't that count for something, that he was willing to do that, given the fact that he's been a little nervous in big moments throughout the year to do that?
Yeah, and I will say, to your point, I do believe there are times that he was not the guy that took the shot because there was a concern that if he missed it, he would not handle it well after the game. So I think that plays into your thesis there, and I think that part can be accurate. And I do give him credit for having more guts. I would also like him to use the brains a little bit, but you're right. He has grown a good bit as far as the amount of steel in his gut, but I would like to see him, like, he's a smart basketball player. Igor comes over to set the ball screen. Use the ball screen. Don't just shoot over your guy with Igor's guy, and Igor and your guy all right there in one space because you got the hot hand and you're feeling yourself. I'd just like to see him do those things. But you're right. He's gotten a lot more brave in the half court than he was even a month ago.
Well, I don't think he's turned the corner until he's consistently taking it to the rack and keeping all defenses honest.
I could see that. I would like to, and again, that part of that's utilizing your ball screen and making the right play, right? Or if you can take your man, like last night Wofford, you could take your man off the dribble, and he did not want to take his guy off the dribble. Now, sometimes I've said with this team, the worst thing that can happen to them is they hit a couple early threes, because then you know what I mean. Then they think they're the Golden State Warriors and they start we're trying to splash for other it, but I don't know if he's ever going to be. I think in space, he is very comfortable doing that. In the non-conference, I thought he was comfortable doing that. And so when Tennessee would hurry up the floor, everybody gets immediately into their spacing, couple 2-3 passes, somebody drives the lane or somebody shoots an open three. I think Chaz Lanier is far more comfortable taking somebody off the dribble there. But when it's in the half court, the defense is compact in the paint. How many times do you see him when he drives do that pull up, fall away from the elbow, right? Like that, he's just not as comfortable ducking his head, getting to the basket, I think we knew he was this guy a little bit. Your hope then was, I've got a guy that averages 18 points a game coming from a mid-major that plays finesse. I've got a guy in Darlin Stone DeBar who will duck his head and just put his shoulder into anybody. And then Stone's dealt with some mental health issues, and you haven't had that yin and yang between those two guys.
Today's tough question: did Chaz Lanier turn the corner? Also, our poll question, if you want to take an opportunity to vote on that. It is up. Vols win versus Wofford was dominant. Let's go. Just good enough or troublesome. We'll have Will's take on that. And also, we will have the results from the current poll that is running. As we remind you, today's tough question about Chaz Lanier brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. Banks and Jones.
Well, let's talk a little bit about whether or not it's turning a corner or clutch gene or not. And what do you think of the idea that, because we had Steve Hamer on the show, this was in the middle of February when we were really questioning Chaz Lanier's drop-off. I mean, through nobody's fault, there's a really good chance that he just wasn't adequately prepared for SEC play, because this SEC is the deepest, most toughest conference, particularly defensively, that college basketball has ever seen. And on top of that, Tennessee's non-conference schedule ended up being a lot easier in November, December than I think they planned for it to be, because a lot of teams ended up being significantly worse. So could Chaz Lanier's issues in January and February that we all kind of noticed, because I thought he kind of came on strong towards the end, could it have just been that he wasn't necessarily, that it was a bit shocking, not just for him, but for a lot of people, for the massive level of increase in competition from the SEC to non-conference play?
I think he and Igor have both struggled because of the change in play that Rick Barnes had to go through. And from what I've been told, you lost Estrella, you lost Carr, you had less depth, and also it plays back into maybe some old bad habits of Rick Barnes, right? Everybody talks about there's the second round Rick joke and stuff like that, which I believe is unfair. But why he loses early is because he's Mark Stoops or Kirk Ferentz basketball. It's I'm gonna, oh gosh, my defense is suffering because of how my offense is going. Pull this thing back. They had planned to play in space. They had planned to utilize a lot of things that looked a lot like what the Boston Celtics did last year. And we're going to hurry into our spacing immediately when we get into the half court, and couple passes. Somebody needs to be driving. Somebody needs to be shooting, space the floor, take guys off the dribble with the left or right hand. We have three guys that can do that on this roster. Akpara's a really nice defensive stopper, and it was going to look more like the NBA than college basketball. And then Estrella has the foot injury, and then Carr's gone, and Rick Barnes decides we're going to slow this thing down because we don't have as deep of a bench. I have made the argument. I have talked to many former coaches, players that have said, no, they need to go back to that. Yeah, you're 8 deep. Everybody's 8 deep. You know what I mean? Like Houston's only 7 deep, and you know what I mean? So it's not like Duke only goes 8 deep. So it's not like he had fewer players than everybody else, but I think he expected to have 9 guys and Stone to be that guy that when you got into the half court that could work with Zakai Ziegler, because games are going to get slowed down. And I think Chaz struggled and Igor have struggled because this isn't the thing that they do. It's like having Joe Burrow when you're running the triple option, right? I don't know how it doesn't mean Joe Burrow sucks. It just means this isn't what Joe Burrow does, and there's going to be a massive learning curve trying to figure that out. So you're playing to weaknesses, but you're playing to your coach's strength. And it's hard to argue with what Barnes' philosophy is there, because you've been a top 5 team, top 8 team most of the year. You were the 12th ranked team in the preseason. So he's overachieved what the preseason expectations were for them. I just think, man, I'm looking at this team and I'm saying those 2 guys are so fish out of water. And the rest of your guys, like Zakai's just not a very good shooter. Meshek's not a very good shooter. Akpara's, not a very good put the back to the basket, get the ball in with the entry pass type guy. Because even if even if he can score, when the double team comes, I don't know that he's going to find the open man for the 3 to space the floor. I don't know if he's going to find that guy because I don't know what kind of passer he is. So I think these guys are just playing out of position and playing in a type of game. Again, do you remember Barry Switzer back in the day had Troy Aikman and was going to run the wishbone with him? That's what right now Tennessee basketball is doing offensively with Chaz Lanier and with Igor Milicic. It's just not the type of player they are. And they've adapted, and they haven't complained to their benefit, to their credit, because I'll be real, if I was Chaz Lanier's dad or Igor Milicic's dad, you'd probably I probably would have said some things to the media, because I think it's a horrible decision. But it's working for Rick Barnes so far. It just the problem is, man, if you hurt those guys' potential for pro money by playing this way.
Yeah, if Chaz Lanier breaks his leg on Sunday against UCLA like Aikman did at Oklahoma, then it's Will West's fault, everyone.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, let me ask you the poll question as we change gears just a little bit, and then we're going to talk UCLA. Vols win versus Wofford was dominant. Let's go. Just good enough or troublesome?
Just good enough. Just good enough. And part of it's, I'm of the belief they were playing with their food, right? They knew we're such better athletes than these guys that I can leave my man to go try to double team and get a steal. I don't have to put a body into somebody because I'm a bigger, stronger, faster athlete and I can out jump them or beat them to the spot. So I think it was just good enough. And now, but if you look at it, look at the rest of college basketball. A lot of times I always want to say, okay, let's not just all focus in on Tennessee. Look at the rest of college basketball. Tennessee had the worst win for a 1 or 2 seed yesterday. So it was good enough. You won, but it was just good enough.
Thought it was troublesome, Caleb.
Yeah, I thought it was troublesome too. It's funny, you're right. They did have the worst win for a 1 or 2 seed. It reminds me of this is a totally random throwback, but y'all probably both remember this. 2005, the debacle of a season with Rick Clausen and Eric Ainge. You knew the season was in trouble the first week because Tennessee had a very ugly win against UAB. In the same week, USC and Texas just blew out their opponents. And you're like, okay, so 1 and 2 blew out their opponents, 4 blows out their opponents, but 3, Tennessee just absolutely struggled to put away UAB, and then Fulmer acts like they would be a middle of the pack SEC team, which he was quoted as saying at the time. But this kind of reminds me of that. You're right, because it's like you saw every 1 and 2 seed dismantle their opponents, have no trouble, and you see Tennessee just get this sluggish win, could not put Wofford away.
I will say this really quickly, Will, because you and I were together. I thought the second ugliest win was Auburn. And if you look at the score, I heard somebody on the radio this morning say blew out Alabama State. Nah, that was kind of a game there, longer than it should have been.
Twice they blew double-digit leads for the same reason that Tennessee struggled against Wofford as they started playing with their food again. And they weren't fundamentally sound. They weren't doing all those things you've heard from every basketball coach at every basketball camp you've been to your entire life. They didn't do any of those things. Pat Summitt would not have been pleased with either of those performances because that's effort, right? Rebounding and defense, that's effort. And staying on your man, that's just focus. Putting a body into somebody, that's focus. They didn't do that. But I agree with you. But Auburn did eventually, once the second time that what was it, 3? Was that what it was, Dave? Maybe Caleb, maybe you remember. The second time Alabama State closed it to 3, Auburn locked in and they did the job. Tennessee never had to completely lock in, so they kind of didn't lock in. Also, by the way, we're going to point out that center was my age. Like that guy, that center for Wofford is 44 years old, and wondering how he's going to pay for all his kid, and he and his wife are going to split up the kids' travel ball games that are coming up that weekend.
Well, I heard him and his wife are going through a divorce, actually. It's
so fair enough.
Situation. Yeah, and I noticed later in the game, too, I don't want to cast aspersions on Caucasians, but there were 3 white guys in the game at one point for Wofford. That's not a great sign.
Yeah, but at the same time, it was 3 white guys that couldn't hit open corner threes. So you got to feel pretty good about that if you're Tennessee.
I mean, it's like white guys that can't catch punt returns. It's like you're in there so you don't fumble.
There you go. What the H? It's brought to you today by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. I think a lot of people thought that Utah State would advance. That didn't happen. UCLA wins and pulls away in the second half to win convincingly. Tennessee will play UCLA in the round of 32. I think it's a little surprising for most. What the H? Let's break down the Bruins of Los Angeles.
What the H?
Wow, I never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
What did you make of UCLA? Utah State was a popular upset pick, and I kind of wondered even if it would have been an upset. What did you make of the Bruins?
I thought very quick in the backcourt. Very, very, very quick in the backcourt. They are faster in the backcourt than Tennessee is. Even Zakai. And they are very fast. And Zakai's going to be a more skilled player. If Tennessee gets a tie whistle, that's going to be a tough game. You're allowed to play, and so far they've let them play. But I get concerned that if there's a tie whistle, because especially again watching Tennessee not stay in front of their man, and that was concerning to me last night. Now part of that could have been I don't have to stay in front of him because I can make it up. It's kind of like Deion back in the day would just lay off of wide receivers and bait you into throwing, and he's faster than you, so he's going to beat you. There was some of that maybe that was happening last night with Tennessee. I was floored. I don't think I realized in the 3 UCLA games that I watched over the year, I don't know that I realized how fast their backcourt was. And maybe some of that's just that Utah State didn't have a particularly quick backcourt, but they're fast. They're very, very fast. They get downhill in a hurry. They get up court in a hurry and play in transition. Tennessee needs to be prepared for that. You do a lot of dumb passing and side to side stuff. They're gonna jump your passing lanes, and they're going to beat you. So you're going to have to get a little north and south and pressure the paint.
Well, it's funny. You and I took two totally different things away from the game. I'm not saying what you took away is wrong, because you're right. They are very fast. I don't know if against Tennessee and with Rick Barnes, Mick Cronin is going to play the style of play necessary for the speed of the guards, because UCLA has played very slow all year. So what stood out to me was when they put Ade Mera in the game, and he was in there with Tyler Bilodeau, because if you do Tyler Bilodeau, that's people are worried about what he could do to Tennessee, but you just have him one-on-one with Felix Opera. Felix Opera will shut him down, honestly. I trust Felix Opera's defense. But if you put him in there with Ade Mera, who hadn't played all year, that I'm talking about the 7'3" center that came in and had 10 points and 5 blocks, I think Tennessee should be really concerned. Igor Milicic is already a bit soft. I think he would get wrecked at that point, because Felix Opera can do his job, but then you need Milicic or Cade Phillips to do their job. And I just don't I think UCLA could torch them under the basket if they do that.
No, you're right. They could. The key to that is, and will Tennessee do this? So what you do if you're in that position is you make sure Milicic has the ball 22 feet away from the rim, and you look, because he can go left or right, and you make him drive, and let's try to get that guy in foul trouble. To me, that's the solution to that, is especially if you got a big guy that doesn't play a lot of minutes. To me, the reason he does that is he's out of control on the defensive end. And so, but Tennessee historically, and Rick Barnes historically, teams with two bigs give him trouble and give Tennessee lots of trouble, and it becomes a problem for them. So your point is, it's very, very, you're right. That is very concerning. But the key to me is you've got to get that guy in foul trouble, because that has to be the reason he's not on the floor if he's capable of dropping double figures like that, right?
Great. General Ursa says, how many times during the broadcast this Saturday do we hear about Barnes almost taking the UCLA job? So let's talk about that, Will. How close do you think Rick Barnes was to going to LA and continuing his coaching career there?
I think he was taking the job, and I think that he prayed about it, didn't have a good feeling about it, and then some people came in on the administrative side and said, no, Philip Fulmer, we're not letting this guy leave. And because Philip Fulmer was not going to give him the infrastructure that he needed to build the program the way that he wanted it, he was not willing to bump him in salary. And I believe that the administration in Tennessee came in and went over Philip Fulmer's head to get those things done to keep Rick Barnes here. I don't think they got along. I don't think like they don't like each other way. I think Philip Fulmer looked at it the way it was under Doug Dickey, and he thought it needs to be that, where football's everything. Women's basketball will do what we need to out of respect for Pat, and then basketball's just an afterthought. And that isn't the way of the world anymore. And again, a lot of what Coach Fulmer did, some things needed to be done. He got everybody on the same page, which needed to happen, because, man, they were fractured. But there are a lot of things that he did that where he made mistakes, it was antiquated, right? When you say, we're going to compact the field in an era when everybody's spreading the field out, and you're like, we're going to go beat Alabama, do what Alabama does with not Alabama's coach. Well, that's probably not going to work. So you go get the defensive coordinator. So you're just going to go be Timu Alabama. Like, it just, why would you think that I'm going to go? Think about the 3 guys he tried to hire, right? He tried to hire, his finalists were Mel Tucker, Brent Venables, Jeremy Pruitt. Like, come on, man. And so I just think he didn't want to I think that Rick Barnes was gone. I think that he prayed about it. I'll just point blank. I know 2 of the guys that he was involved in a lot of prayer about this with, and felt like the Lord said, nope. And then after that happened, the administration at UT came in and just, I don't want to say undermined Philip Fulmer, but went over his head to say, we're going to give you these things, whether he agrees to give it to you or not.
So, I was wondering which came first, because I'm not dismissing prayer or anything like that. But I mean, I love when people substitute prayer for, he got a lot of extra money to stay at Tennessee. Kind of reminds me of remember when Nick Saban said that I came back to college because I just really enjoy coaching college. I'm like, no, you came back to college because Alabama offered you $40 million to leave Miami. But Will, looking at that, would UCLA be much different with Rick Barnes than they are with Mick Cronin right now? I mean, like they seem like similar coaches to me.
I think so. I agree with you there. I think that Rick Barnes has figured out the NIL thing better than Mick Cronin has. I think that he's shown willingness to adjust a little bit more than Mick Cronin has. I will also tell you somebody point blank involved in that school for a long time. UCLA is going to be better. They are. And from here on, Bill Walton was the problem at UCLA. And it's just you had to I was told one big-time coach didn't want to take that job, and a very good friend of his told me that was wanting the job and then said, nope. And I was like, okay, what happened there? And he said, his biggest problem in life is he doesn't know how to suffer a fool, especially if that fool's Bill Walton. And it's a matter of you had to let Bill Walton walk into your locker room and tell you that you're going to do this, you're going to do that. This is how we're handling this. Go to your boosters and say, no, don't give him money for that guy. We don't need that guy. And that's too much money for like you had to deal with Bill Walton ran the same way Bob Stoops runs Oklahoma's program from afar. But at least Bob Stoops was a good coach. Bill Walton was a great player. He didn't know anything about running a program or any of that stuff. I mean, you got to remember those Bill Walton teams at UCLA were built because they were laundering cocaine money through the, through that program. That's why John Wooden had all those wins and all those players. They had to create rules because of the way they got paid. And Bill Walton would walk in and undermine everything that's happening at UCLA. And so I think that now Mick Cronin will have some success, but I think that Rick Barnes would have had about the same level of success to this point, and maybe a little bit more because he's a little better at playing the new game of basketball, if that makes sense.
Let me play devil's advocate a little bit there. Is What the H brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com. To me, that's not on Bill Walton. That's on UCLA for not keeping him out of the way.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. But he had the relationships with dudes. So, I mean, like, again, Oklahoma. I don't think Oklahoma will ever be that good again at football until Bob Stoops walks away to some extent, right? Or it has to be a buddy of his or something like that. I don't. And I don't, but it's a little bit like what was the guy's name that was a coach forever at Wisconsin, right? That I can't remember his
Barry
name.
Alvarez or Bill Ryan?
Barry Alvarez. That you had to run Barry's system if you wanted to take that job. So dudes left, and dudes wouldn't take that job because you didn't want to run Barry Alvarez's system, but that was what you had to do. Bill Walton was going to run that, and you're right. It is absolutely on UCLA, their boosters, their administration for letting Bill Walton do that.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
You would have. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kayla. I just would have never thought that by his public persona. I hadn't heard that before. He seems like the laughable, big, tall, cuddly bear, and in the end, he's trying to manipulate and orchestrate. Go ahead, Kayla.
I don't even think he was trying to be the behind the scenes mastermind of it. I think he just walked in and popped his mouth off because he didn't have a filter and said crazy things and took hallucinogenics, so he didn't know what he was talking about. You know what I mean? But because he's Bill Walton, that there were people who with a lot of money who listened to him.
Yeah. So, well, it's funny because we're talking about this, and I remember when Rick Barnes was looking at the UCLA job. This wasn't like some Tennessee homerism. I just said he'd be stupid to take that job, and I didn't even know about the Bill Walton things you were talking about. My thought is, one, Tennessee's closer to home. It's literally like Rick Barnes is in the perfect place to be, given family. Tennessee can pay him whatever UCLA can pay him, and let's be honest, this day and age in college basketball, I'm going to say it. I think the allure of UCLA is way greater than the actual quality of the program. They've won one national championship since John Wooden retired. By the way, John Wooden, all those national titles, you talk about cocaine, it was the Sam Gilbert, the businessman, just basically buying players to come. They won one national title with Jim Herrick and then got put on probation for that national title. And the arena only seats like 9,000, 10,000 people. I mean, I'm just going to say it. UCLA, do they have kind of what Tennessee football fans had after the former years of to say, well, don't people know they would just be lucky to come to Tennessee and not understanding they have to do some new things to win?
I think that I think Rick Barnes was never, as long as Philip Fulmer got to make the decision, was never going to get the things from an infrastructure standpoint that you needed here as far as the way you're going to run your camps, have the money for your facilities, have the background that you need to make sure players have everything that they need, training facility time, things like that. Everything you needed. Because especially after that moment what Tennessee, and I don't know if people know about this, Tennessee's recovery and training facility situation, especially for basketball, it's unreal. Like, it's incredible with the way that they use Normatec, ice baths, cryotherapy, any and everything you could imagine to be able to get their guys to recover as quickly as possible. You were never going to get that. Recruiting staff, availability to use planes, things like that. If Philip Fulmer got to call it, Tennessee basketball was just going to be behind everybody else, but you kind of still wanted to, because of the way the fan base, look, I've said this a million times. The Tennessee's fans are the reason Tennessee basketball stayed successful. There was a demand that we're going to be good at basketball. And I think it became very tough asking for things and being told no over and over and over again. And then I was told, Randy Boyd came in and said, nope, we're not letting that happen. We're not letting this guy walk. We're going to give you the things you need. Do you remember, that Philip Fulmer didn't show up to Rick Barnes' Hall of Fame induction? Like, there's not another, like, if we're a sitting coach, an athletics director not showing up for your Hall of Fame induction, that doesn't happen, right? So, and again, I don't think they don't get along. I think Philip Fulmer looked at basketball as a loss leader, as just a loss. Why are we doing this? Football's the only thing that matters here. And I can be, I'm the little old head myself, so I can be in that camp sometimes as well. But Tennessee fans demand that Tennessee basketball be good. So you're getting the responsibility of having to have a winning program without the resources you feel like you need to create a winning program. And at UCLA, they would have given him that, and he wouldn't have had the athletics director, who was the former football coach, to have to bang heads with. I said at the time, and people got super mad at me about it, that relationship was they were so far off, Philip Fulmer and Rick Barnes were, that it was probably best for one of them to walk away. And what happened instead was Randy Boyd stepped in. And over again, when you talk about Tennessee having success, what happened? Randy Boyd stepped in.
Will West of the Sports Animal, 3 to 7 each and every weekday. He'll be joined by some goofball this afternoon.
Yeah.
As this goofball sits in for Tyler Ivins. Will, greatly appreciate it. I look forward to talking about more Bill Walton. That's one of my all-time favorite players. I didn't know that. You just kind of hurt me.
Yeah, sorry.
Deep.
Sorry. And I don't think he was a bad guy like Mastermind again. I just think Bill Walton thought he knew everything, and he ate a bunch of mushrooms, and that's a good bad combination, man.
Well, we'll see you soon. We appreciate you, buddy. All right, good stuff. Other thoughts on the tournament real quick before we get to a stat of the day. And Caleb, a couple of different things. I thought that Auburn had a very similar game to Tennessee, that they were so much better than their opponent. They played a little bit flat. We didn't talk much about the Will Wade thing yesterday, but credit McNeese State. And I thought about this. Will Wade, it used to be, if you announced you were leaving, as he is to NC State, right before a tournament like this, you lose in the first round. You have a pathetic showing because your players are mad at you because they're stuck. I thought about this later in the day. He may be being forthright so that he can pick the players he wants to go with him to North Carolina State and motivate them to play harder, because there's going to be more NIL money at NC State than McNeese State. So any other thoughts on the tournament day one?
Oh, it's funny you say that with Will Wade. I don't think it's just the forthright on that. I think it's the players don't have to worry about it. They can put it out of their head. They can be like, okay, he's leaving. Let's go all in here. Let's go all now on this run. I'll give you an example of it, Dave. 1976. The world knew the week before the Sugar Bowl that Johnny Majors was going to Tennessee. That didn't stop Pittsburgh from winning the national title.
Yep. And I have and mentions Matt mentions Drake, the Cinderella team this year. I had Drake winning. I picked them as my Cinderella team yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, the school is winning a lot more than the rapper is right now.
That's true. Kendrick Lamar took care of that at the Super Bowl. I mean, there's so many. If you haven't watched that Kendrick Lamar show, I would encourage you do so, because a lot of people didn't know who Kendrick Lamar was, but they did know who Drake was, but they didn't know Drake was, I don't know.
Basically, the full Kendrick Lamar dedicated an entire Super Bowl performance to trashing Drake.
But they didn't know he was allegedly a pedophile. Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, sorry.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, so here we go. Stat of the day. What do you got, Caleb?
Well, we got to give a shout out to Zakai Ziegler because in Tennessee's win over Wofford last night, Zakai Ziegler had 12 points and 12 assists, a double-double. And with that double-double, he now has 726 career assists, the all-time assist leader in Tennessee basketball history, passing Johnny Darden. And I brought this up yesterday, but I have to bring it up today again. Johnny Darden was passing the ball to Bernard King and Ernie Grunfeld. There wasn't some, finding people in the right spot to get them the ball. It was, hey, here's the ball, go score.
Yeah. Sports Treasures brings you stat of the day, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. They have daily updates at the link below. Follow them, facebook.com, Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN. Also, portions of the program brought to you by Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full-service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com, QualityTirePros.com. Tell both Dave and Off the Hook Sports said, hey, Bo, how about 2 minutes, and then we dive into another Tennessee basketball topic. Tennessee's defense, a concern versus Wofford. A couple of people have questioned our direction and our opinions on Tennessee's showing against Wofford. Guys, I was 5 minutes into that game, and I knew Wofford was woefully limited in talent. Caleb,
Wofford was woefully limited.
Yeah, if there are 10 worst teams in the NCAA tournament, show them to me, because I don't think there are 10 worst teams in Wofford.
No, that's why I took Tennessee to cover, and Wofford did not score 50, and that's why it's concerning that Wofford scored 62 and Tennessee only won by 15.
Yeah, well, there was no way that Tennessee was going to cover. I told you that yesterday. I told Will that yesterday. I mean, this is Tennessee basketball we're talking about, kids. It's Tennessee basketball in March. They don't cover, and they usually don't advance. I don't think that's the latter is necessarily the case this year, but I knew they weren't going to cover. All right, so Tennessee's defense, a concern. We dive into that. 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Hit that like and subscribe button. Off the Hook Sports.
Why Banks and Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Ranger Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, BanksandJones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
You can also watch us on the Facebook And we've got a question up there. Do you feel more or less optimistic about Tennessee's chances moving forward? Jason says, I'll be honest, I'm kind of worried about this game with UCLA. I was pretty impressed watching them. They have a pretty good big. They defend and shoot the ball well. You seen an early point spread on this game, Caleb?
Didn't you say it was 5.5?
Yeah, I think it is. It is. And Timothy has a couple super chats we want to get in there because that sends Quincy Calhoun to college. And super chat, Timothy says this: negative Nancy's a win is a win, whether it's by 9 or 30.
Timothy, and I'm having to learn this in my life right now, but you should apply it in basketball too. Don't accept things in a win that you would not accept in a loss.
Okay, I like that. Sports is like a snowflake. No two games are alike. Got to understand that and understand that negative Nancy. It's talking about you, Caleb. It's calling you out.
No two games are alike, but here's the thing. There are types of snow. There's wet snow, and then there's blizzard snow, and then there's light snow. And while each flake is not the same, like all wet snow is more similar to each other than all blizzard snow. And so, I mean, when you think about it that way, yeah, the way Tennessee played, you can look at it and be concerned. I get no two games are alike, but the way Tennessee played could bite them in the next game if they're not careful.
When it snows or when it's hot, it doesn't matter. City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. We'll get into some of the specifics, but right now, I think Tennessee's defense is a concern versus Wofford. You pointed that out, and that they gave up more points than they should have. How much of that is Tennessee playing around with Wofford, not intimidated whatsoever about Wofford, and just all out not respecting Wofford?
Well, I'm going to dive into that with the options of why the defense struggled, because I think there's a lot of factors, but I'm not sure which one is the real factor.
Okay, well, so let's go with that. Let's just go with, you're dealing with 20, 21-year-old young men that roll out there and they see that they're playing somebody that's much lower caliber than they are. I think there's a natural tendency just as a player and as a man to be like, oh, this isn't that challenging.
No, I agree. I agree. And I think that's, but there are a few other things when we get to the elements that could have been factors too. I just don't want to give it away.
Caleb's not going to answer the question. All right, here we go. Hot or cold? Wofford shot the ball well from 3. How big of a factor was that? Hot or cold? Hot meaning it was a huge factor. Cold meaning it was not much of a factor.
So we're talking about Tennessee's defense being a concern versus Wofford, and what happened. They gave up 62 points, which they shouldn't have. And Wofford just shot the ball well. I'm cold on this. I don't think it was Wofford shooting the ball well. I think Tennessee's defense was not playing the way it typically plays. You have the number 1 ranked defensive three-point efficiency in the nation, and that's because they switch well and they don't double and they don't leave guys open, and they left guys open. I think this was all about Tennessee. Now, Wofford, to their credit, has shot over 40% from 3 the last 4 games. That's why they got hot and won the Southern Conference tournament. But Tennessee is supposed to be the best three-point shooting defensive team in the nation, and they did not defend Wofford well from the 3.
No, I agree. They did not defend. I thought it was more about defending than it was about whether or not Wofford hit the shot. They shouldn't have had the opportunity to shoot the shot. And no offense, but there were a bunch of Dane Bradshaws out there running around on the perimeter. I mean, that's just a fact. Tennessee is tired from the SEC tournament. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Hot meaning, yes, they're tired from the SEC tournament. Cold meaning, no, they're not. It's not that.
I'm hot on this. They're tired from the SEC tournament. I think that I watched the game and they were just not as quick getting off screens. You can't screen this team in the season. I don't know if you guys watch Tennessee basketball. You can't screen them. They get around them quickly. The reason Wofford was so awful early on was Wofford wasn't moving as much. The minute Wofford introduced a little bit of motion around the perimeter, Tennessee struggled, and these are not athletic players, guys.
Yeah, I tell you what, Caleb, I've written something recently, 2 days ago, that proves your point. But there's part of me that definitely wants to agree with you. There's part of me that wants to say that they bus to Lexington, and busing is usually more fatiguing than hopping on a plane. There's part of me that wants to say they could be mentally fatigued, which
That's hot.
I will lean towards more than physical fatigue, because I've been 21. I've played basketball 5 days a week. I just can't imagine being physically fatigued at that age. And you may well be right. Maybe they're expending energy on a level that I never did at Bricky Elementary School when they'd open the gym. But man, you're 21, 22. And as Will pointed out, they have incredible medical support. Just don't understand how in creation you're tired 4 days after a game and you don't play an up-tempo style. If this was UNLV and, or Arkansas's team for that matter, back in the Nolan Richardson days, and they played a Thursday game and they were tired on a Saturday, I could kind of get that. I'm just having trouble believing with 3 days rest you're tired. I'm sorry. I know the numbers prove that you're right.
Well, it's not just 3 days rest, though. It's coming off 3 games in 3 days, 2 grind fest in Florida and Auburn. And the up-tempo style is not the biggest thing that wears you down, Dave. You brought it up, mental fatigue. It's the way Rick Barnes coaches. And yes, Tennessee plays a half-court game. But Dave, how much Tennessee loves contact. They love Zakai Ziegler loves contact. Jemai Mashak loves contact. So they like to wear other teams down, but then they get worn down themselves. So it's like, I'm sorry, but yeah, no, I think they're mentally worn down. And I think that, by the way,
mentally, I'll roll with you. And
here's another problem. UCLA can go 8 to 9 deep, and they can actually play 10 guys if they want to.
Yep.
They're going to be fresher than Tennessee.
Steve says 103 watching, only 17 likes. So thank you, Steve, for reminding me of that. Please hit that like button, hit the thumbs up button so we can bring more people in here. Dylan says, I'm not sweating the Wofford game. If anything played, it was like shoot around, went out and survived. We'll get back at it against UCLA. We shall see. Now, the next option for Tennessee and hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, is maybe Tennessee didn't play their best game against Wofford, and that was by design. Caleb may have stumbled onto something. Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee, cityheatandair.com. Hot or cold, were the Vols playing possum?
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. All right, Caleb. You brought this up on the rundown, and I think you may be reaching a little bit, but I want to see where you stand. Was Tennessee purposefully conserving energy?
Even though I think they were tired, I'm hot on this too. I think they were purposely conserving energy. I think they're connected.
That's
and
hot.
let me explain why. And this is why I didn't want to give it away when you asked me at the start, because I'm like, when you're playing a lesser team, you do this. And that's this. They know they're a little bit drained from the SEC tournament. Rick Barnes knows there's a little bit drained. He probably played a little, hey guys, if you get called on one guy and leave another guy open on the perimeter, let him shoot. Don't expend energy trying to stop that three.
He didn't say that. Now, he might have not called 3-quarter press, which he didn't. And that would be silly, because then you're just going to burn energy. But he didn't say, don't worry about guarding your man.
No. What he said is if there is a screen and you end up 2 of you guys on one guy on the perimeter, he probably. This is a defensive style a lot of teams do anyway. He would just be like, y'all both just stay on that guy, pretty much. So what I'm saying is there weren't a lot of switching. They weren't coming around screens as much. I do think it was on purpose, and I think you're right. Maybe it was psychological. This is what you brought up before we dove right into hot or cold, where you talk about psychologically, do you maybe just take a little bit off when you're playing a team like Wofford? Yeah, they psychologically took some off. I think Rick Barnes strategized for them to take some off. Dave, Rick Barnes just dropped in Bishop Boswell in the middle of the first half. Did you notice that?
I did. That was a little odd.
Yeah, exactly. He is out. I think he was purposely trying to conserve energy because he knew how bad Wofford was. Look, it was a weird type of game where Wofford wouldn't go away. Tennessee couldn't put Wofford away permanently, but also where Wofford never really made it that, like, they never really put the game in question. Does that make sense? Like, they never got closer than 9.
That's true. If you're Tennessee, though, the way to put them away is to bury them. And with 10 minutes left, this is why I'll differ with you. I think it's to bury them. And with 10 minutes left, you're playing, well, whatever backups you can put out there. They don't really have a full complement of backups because of preseason injuries and transfer portals. But Timothy wants to contribute to Quincy Calhoun's college fund. What does Timothy have for us, Caleb?
That is a loser mentality, to just lose, and then y'all complain about a win. Complain if they lose a certain way. I think you're talking about a loser mentality to just lose in the SEC tournament. Well, they look tired on defense, Timothy, because they played 3 games in 3 days. And last year they threw the SEC tournament on a Friday and went home, and then they made it to the Elite 8. So you tell me which one is.
I'll say this too. Wofford was bad enough that Caleb's conspiracy theory here of play and play, his possum theory, is a little too rich for my blood. But to support it, Wofford was so bad that you could play around with them. And if you were even down by 5 with 10 minutes left, you could still go win by 20.
Yeah, easily. That's why I'm so upset. Tennessee should have covered yesterday, and they should have held Wofford under 50 points. I'm still not over it. And so I had a horrible day betting yesterday, guys. That was one of my worst.
Is that why you're so moody?
I'm not moody.
Yeah. Rory has, he says, this Caleb guy's a moron sometimes. Coaches and kids don't tank
Rory,
games.
Tennessee literally tanked a game last year in the SEC tournament.
You say that. I don't think they did. David says, I noticed Boswell early, too. I figured it was to keep Chaz and ZZ, keep with Gainey playing a lot of minutes as well. Tell you what, Gainey might be the X factor in this crew.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree. Oh, wow. Someone is accusing me of not being from Memphis.
Let's focus on Gainey.
I'm sorry. I'm just going. I saw it on the message board. Gainey, I think Tennessee just didn't need him yesterday. Look, I'm not worried about the backcourt lack of scoring yesterday. They went all in on Chaz Lanier. They went all in on Chaz Lanier and let him score and take all the shots.
Well, at the end of the day, Wofford did not have anybody that could defend someone as long and big as Chaz Lanier. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. No, not at all.
Yeah. So if he's hitting his jump shot, which he was, then my criticism of him has been, and it's been Rick Barnes's too. I'm not just pulling this out of you know what. That is, he needs to take it to the rack more. He technically needed to take it to the rack more yesterday, but his shot was falling. So Tennessee needs to, as a group, take it to the rack more. Well, Zakai did some, and Chaz's shot was falling. So you never had to really play that card. I can pretty much promise you, if Lanier comes out and he's shooting like he against UCLA, like he did against Wofford, they're going to sell out to stop him, and he's either going to have to take it to the rack or Tennessee's going to have other players step up.
So curiously, and I want to know your thoughts on this. Chaz Lanier struggling yesterday, not struggling, going off. Do we think if Chaz Lanier is struggling, Tennessee actually loses that game? Or do we think the other players who didn't score a lot just step up and then they score because they need to?
Nah, there's no way. That's why I think a 14-point win?
15-point win.
15. That's why I think a 15-point win is a little bit disappointing, because that's like playing in middle school. I mean, that was
a bad game.
Chaz Lanier could have sat, and Tennessee would have won easily. Your boy Zeus says, wait, Wofford scored more than 50. Why does Caleb still have his shirt on?
Because I never agreed to that bet.
I think
Dave tried to make it that bet. No, I said I would never do that. I never agreed to that bet. Dave, you want to know how bad I did?
On Caleb in the message board. I love it.
You want to know how bad I did yesterday betting, Dave? You want to just know this real
Not
story?
really. Look at this comment. You hate from Memphis? Coward, eh? Look at
I absolutely am from Memphis. But okay, Rory. All right. Anyways, this happened to me yesterday, Dave. I'm not kidding you. This happened to me.
Yes.
I downloaded the ESPN Bet app because I hadn't used it yet. And I'm like, I'll use this app. And when you download apps, they give you a bunch of free money to hook you in gambling. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I'll take the free money. So I download the ESPN Bet app. I put in 50 of my own money. ESPN gives me $100 for free. And I'm able to spend 5 bonus bets worth $20. Somehow, with a free amount of $100 yesterday from ESPN, I walked away with less money than I put in.
That's great. Good job, Caleb. There you go.
How does that happen on one day? Like, I put in 50. They spotted me 100, and I walk away with $48.
Okay. Well, you've taken over the message board, so we'll go ahead and make it a poll question. But first, let me ask you this when we get back to our topic of Chaz Lanier. Can Tennessee beat UCLA the way that they beat Wofford? In other words, just relying on Chaz Lanier's jump shot. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have. It's falling. Go ahead and do it. Continue to rely on it. I got no problem with that. But with that being said, it might not be falling. There have been times where it hasn't. Caleb's comments brought to you by Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. Recently renovated. Check it out, hdknoxville.com. You can order online. If you join the channel, you get a gift certificate. All you have to do is email me at dave@offthehooksports.com, dave@offthehooksports.com, and send me your email and tell me that you subscribe to the channel, and I'll send you a gift certificate. So it's going to pay for itself in month 1, just $4.99. So Caleb, if they have to rely on Lanier's jump shot, well, let's say, can they win the way the question was? I'm sorry. The question was this: can they beat UCLA the way they beat Wofford?
Not as bad, but I think they can win if Chaz Lanier does this. Look, I've said this all year, and I get Will West's points about him in space. I'm sorry. I'm going to go a little basic. I just need to see Chaz Lanier be aggressive, space or no space. I think Chaz Lanier needs to. He's a scorer, and if he's willing to take over, I don't even care if he's not that efficient. He needs to take over because he will get efficient.
I just don't like how he's Reggie Miller when he could be so much more. Reggie Miller didn't really take it to the rack because he's one of the best shooters of all time, but he also was thin. That wasn't where he was going to make his dollar. Chaz Lanier's a bigger dude, man. He could be taking it to the rack, and that's going to cause defenses to sag off of him, and he could hit more shots. I just feel like at the end of the day, we're going to be having the conversation that Chaz Lanier was a bit of a disappointment.
Basically what we're saying Chaz Lanier needs to be, he doesn't need to be Reggie Miller, and he doesn't need to be Ray Allen. He needs to be Dwayne Wade.
Yep.
He needs to be Dwayne Wade.
I was trying to think of a good one without saying Michael Jordan, because Lord, anybody can use Michael Jordan
or Kobe, Michael or Kobe. But yeah, he needs to be D Wade. He needs to be D Wade. D Wade. And do you remember that that Final Four on Marquette had where D Wade took over and they torched Kentucky, and we thought that Kentucky team was the best team of all time in basketball with Tubby Smith, and D Wade just went off.
Give us an update on our poll question, Caleb.
Okay. Sorry, I got to pull it up real quick. I accidentally X out of it.
Take your time. Yeah, take your that gives me time to remind everyone that portions of the program are brought to you by Newbrook Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newbrook Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. The link right down below, joenewbrookcollision.com, joenewbrookcollision.com.
Do I look upset? Caleb is upset about losing all his bets or crazy about throwing games. By the way, I'm upset on the message board. I didn't go to private school in Memphis. I graduated from Ridgeway High School, public school. Okay, that's right. Memphis City school system. Didn't go to any of that. So don't be throwing CBHS or ECS at me or Briarcrest or
You seem like a private school type of cat.
No. By the way, if I had gone to Briarcrest, I'd have been kicked out because of all the stuff I say about Hugh Freeze. I was saying about him back then too, because I knew some things. So he was coaching at Briarcrest back then.
The issue with Lanier and Tennessee winning that way, I don't think they can win that way because I don't think UCLA will let them. They have very quick guards. I know they're not going to be as tall as Lanier, but I believe they're going to D him up. And They're going to be around him, and they're going to make him uncomfortable. And ultimately, I don't think Tennessee can win that way. I think he will have to say, I'm going to take it to the rack, at least a third of the time, Caleb, to keep defenses honest, and or Tennessee will have to get scoring from other places as well. I don't think they can rely on Chaz Lanier shooting the outside shot and expect to beat the Bruins.
No, I agree. I think the real key, here's the problem, though. UCLA's guards are quick. They also could play two bigs to give Tennessee trouble under the basket. Where does Tennessee, and we're about to get to the post. Maybe I'll save this for when we get to the bigs, but like, where does Tennessee go? If they turn it into transition, they're going to lose. Like this team can't run transition really.
Yeah. And let me defend Caleb for a second, because Derek says exactly he's not a D Wade. Well, I don't think Caleb is talking about absorbing as much contact as Dwayne Wade did. He purposefully absorbed contact. I just think he's talking about it felt like, I don't know if it's 50-50 or not, but it felt like when Dwayne Wade got the ball, I didn't know if he was shooting a three or if he was taking it to the rack. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, and D Wade actually didn't shoot the ball that great from three. D Wade was very aggressive most of the time going to the basket. So Chaz Lanier is a much better shooter than D Wade.
Man, Caleb wrote so much. By the way, great job last night in turning copy, as I had a long day of about 6 hours on the air. So, but people are jumping all over Caleb. I probably wrote the most negative thing about the win, to be real honest with you.
I was pretty negative too.
Well, I called it troublesome. If you want to drop a couple of our stories in there throughout the show, we can. But I thought it was very troublesome that they didn't hammer that team. And listen, I know that whether or not Caleb is right or I'm right, teams can come out flat in the NCAA tournament. Caleb could be right that it's fatigue. I could be right that I think sometimes the stage is big and I've seen teams wilt. That's fine. Wilt in the first half. But come out and hammer a team in the second half, right? And pull away and beat that team who's starting every Caucasian in the greater Lexington area. I mean, you've got to beat that team by 25.
Yeah, you do. I mean, it should be the first 10 minutes of the second half should be so overwhelming for them. I was so sure, Dave, that at one point, even when Wofford started scoring, I was like, they're going to have a really, really long dry spell. Where Tennessee's defense in these lesser teams usually like force you to go like 10 minutes without scoring. You know what I mean? And that didn't happen in this game. So I have every right to be concerned about them. And you know what? Vegas is concerned because Tennessee didn't live up to Vegas's expectations. So don't negative Nancy me, negative Nancy Vegas.
Vegas doesn't care. They just want the betting to be 50-50 on both sides. Gene says Lanier is not a great ball handler. His game has to be jump shot focused. Jump shot focused, yes. So maybe the D Wade thing is a little bit strong, but not too much. But still, there has to be the threat of taking it to the rack. You have to do that. I would just demand, if I were Rick Barnes, I would demand that he takes the ball to the basket at least once in the first 5 minutes and at least twice in the first 10 minutes. And then that should open up his jump shot. But as it turns out, I think Wofford was so scared of him doing anything that they ended up a little starstruck.
So does Rick Barnes strike you as someone who would like adjust his game 2 days later, even though it's a different opponent, or is he play the same style no matter what?
He'll be 71 this summer. The answer is no. Timothy says, you want to find something to nag about if they won by 20. No, I wouldn't.
It depends on how they won by 20. Again. Okay. Dave, I want to tell you something. I got a funny story to tell you. I got to be a columnist at the Daily Beacon when I was at Tennessee during the 2006 season. You remember how this is where this all comes from. Remember when they opened the year against Cal and they just beat the brakes off them, started 35-0.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
I said at the time that wasn't as big of a blowout as you think. Tennessee cashed in on Cal having their star cornerback playing with a broken hand, unable to guard Robert Meacham one-on-one. And it was just a big mismatch, and they took advantage of it. It's my first column. That was negative Nancying, but I was proven right because 1 week later, they barely beat Air Force and they lost to Florida. My point is,
well, that is a reach.
It is not about it's not a reach. It's not a reach because people thought
to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why right now. Because Tennessee manhandled Cal. Tennessee went out and knocked one of their blockers on a kick return out of the game on the opening kickoff. Tennessee then went on to win 35-0. The Air Force game, I believe it was the third quarter, is when Inky Johnson suffered his injury. That took the air out of them. And Air Force is a physical team that ran a unique offense. No, those two games are not even.
Well, wait, no, I was talking about Tennessee's offense in particular. That you shouldn't be excited about Tennessee's offensive production in that game. There wasn't some David Cutcliffe revival yet. The reason I'm bringing that to this is that I know I'm not a coach. I'm a writer. I'm a columnist. I'm an opinion guy. But you have to look at what you see, and you can't just react to things based on what's on the scoreboard. You know what this game is actually like, Dave? I'll give you a good one. How about last year in football? Tennessee beats Virginia. Everybody's excited. Remember how ugly they looked against Austin Peay the next week, and then everybody was concerned?
Yeah.
That's what this is. Don't accept things in a win you wouldn't accept in a loss. That's life.
David says Chaz Lanier reminds me of Tyreek Evans.
Tyreek Evans is another good one.
I actually like this one a little bit better. Derek says Michael Finley.
Ooh,
I could see that.
Because Tyreek and D Wade are more slashers. Finley was more of an actual shooter, an outside shooter.
Yeah,
So-
I like that one a lot. As a matter of fact, I'm still in that, Derek. I think he's very Michael Finley-esque in that I think both players, well, he should be more Michael Finley-esque. I think right now he's 80%. He's going to rely on the jumper, 20% take it to the rack. Finley was more like 60-40, maybe even 50-50. That's a good comparison. I think that Chaz Lanier needs to be more like Michael Finley.
So breaking this down real quick, what do you think the key? So actually, we can just make this a separate topic altogether because we've talked about it a good bit. And what do you think Tennessee needs to do to beat UCLA? Because UCLA's guards are too quick, so Tennessee can't play transition. But if Tennessee can't beat them under the basket, do they just have to hope they shoot well? Is this a bigger matchup problem than we thought?
After I saw UCLA, I think it is a bigger matchup problem than we thought. I think that Tennessee, I mean, I sound like a broken record, has to work the dribble drive game. And I know that UCLA's guards are quick, but there should be no reason that Chaz Lanier. Now, this is not going to be a great game for Sakai Ziegler, I don't think. I think he's going to be limited. I think he's always going to help you on defense, but I don't know that he's going to help you as he is on offense. And he did take it to the basket a couple of different times with the dribble drive. I think it's all on Chaz. I don't trust Igor to show up. I certainly don't trust Dubar to show up. I think it's Chaz, or perhaps maybe Jordan Gainey has a big game like he did.
They're kind of yin and yang. They kind of are not yin and yang. That's like they're the same player, Chaz and Jordan Gainey. One just
Gainey was the guy who kept him in the Florida game. So maybe it's Gainey. I think he could be an X factor, but more than likely it's got to be Lanier.
Yeah, I probably agree. Lanier and Jordan Gainey, 1-2 punch. They both have similar styles, so I would go with that.
I would agree with the message board that says what, Caleb?
Caleb's voice seems to get high pitched every time he's upset for or disagrees with what is posted on the message board. No, I don't. I don't get high pitched at all when that happens. Stop.
He called me earlier and said, "Well, if you don't like my opinion, you can go down to Kmart."
I have been defending Jerry Green a lot recently. Maybe Jerry Green's a relative of mine.
Yes. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Other attorneys say they'll go to trial. They will not. They think it loses them money. Banks and Jones, they'll go to trial and fight for you. They absolutely will. Also want to thank our fine friends at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Parkside Drive and on Kingston Pike. New and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. You will absolutely love your vehicle when you drive it off the lot because you'll know the buying process was fantastic and you got one heck of a deal on that new vehicle, like I did my black Jeep, which I absolutely love. Their selection is unparalleled. Take just a moment, click that thumbs up button. General Ursus agrees with me. I agree, Dave. It's definitely Gainey. Well, I think it's a little troublesome, though, if they are relying on a non-starter to...
Well, Gainey's just a sixth starter. That's all he is. I mean, honestly, I made You just can't put Gainey and Lanier out there together. But if Lanier wasn't there, you could start Gainey with Jemai Mashak, and you
Why
probably
can't
get some
you?
results.
Why can't you?
Because you need Jemai Mashak's defense. They're right on the message board. The message board's nailing this. I forgot who said it. Was it David Speaks? You are right. Jemai Mashak is Tony Allen. Okay. Yeah. He is Tony Allen. He takes pride in shutting down everything that you do. He is
the one that slept with LeBron's mom?
No, that was Delonte West.
I know. I just like bringing it up. Gene says Dubar only playing 4 minutes last night was confusing. Gene, I'm sorry it wasn't. The ship is sailed.
We're going to get to the post issues in a minute and see if they could use Dubar, but they can't. I'll just spoiler alert, they can't.
the ship, you would agree the ship has sailed on Dubar, right?
Yeah, unless there's
he's not going to turn in 20 against UCLA or anything.
No, unless there's foul trouble and he randomly comes in. Like the only way this could happen is if there's a severe amount of foul trouble and somehow he goes off. Think back to a swiper boy, Ronaldo Woolridge, when Tennessee had 4 players suspended against Kansas, so they had to start Ronaldo Woolridge, and then he goes off. Remember that?
Yeah, and Brandon points out 2 quick turnovers and 2 fouls. Yeah, but I think he committed those transgressions because he's not comfortable. And you've got to be comfortable in January. I mean, you're not going to suddenly get comfortable in the NCAA tournament. That's not the time. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. In 2 minutes, we dive into this day in Tennessee sports history. Also, where's Tennessee's post game? I didn't know they had one in the first place. Maybe Caleb knows where they've been hiding it. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Coop, you're too fast.
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
Somebody saying Bon Voyage, Dubar. I think he left on that cruise ship a while ago. And I know there have been some mental health issues, and we don't want to dismiss that. So I'm not going to sit here and make fun of him as I probably would have 20 years ago. But because we're in a different climate, which is fine. This day in Tennessee sports history, Caleb, is what?
On this day in 2014, definitely not the 90s. Got to get my days right. Tennessee, as an 11 seed, upset UMass in the NCAA tournament, 6-seeded UMass. Now, what's significant about that, Dave, is that remains, in terms of sheer seeding difference, the largest upset Tennessee ever enjoyed in the NCAA tournament. Tennessee was a 11 seed that day. UMass was a 6 seed, and Tennessee ended up getting the win. That was the year Conzo Martin got them to the Sweet 16. Of course, as you and I both know, Tennessee is an 11 seed and UMass is a 6 seed. That's not like a real upset. That was just terrible seeding by the selection committee. Didn't make sense for them to do that.
I mean, an upset to me is more by what Vegas has, right, than the seeding.
Right. But this is their biggest upset per seeding in NCAA tournament history.
Okay.
And they actually handled them pretty well too. They kind of dominated them, and that was the Conzo team that got to the Sweet 16.
All right, Derek, good luck to your little one on the Austin Peay campus. It is a beautiful campus. There's no question about that. We talked about Tennessee's defense. We talked about Chaz Lanier possibly turning a corner. The question I have is, where's Tennessee's post game right now? Brought to you by 4 Downs. Give me brought to you by our friends. Who is it brought to you by? Brought to you by our friends at Double D Piping. It is 4 Downs. Caleb, Tennessee's post game as a whole. We will dive into that with 4 Downs, but let me get your thoughts on just post game as a whole and how present it was against Wofford or not.
Completely not present. I get that Rick Barnes wanted to play more spacing this year, and this is not his fault, but he has not had what he needed from his post players. And there is a lot to criticize about him. And we're going to do that here because that's what we do. And Tennessee is not. That's what we do, Bar. Okay, sorry.
Wow.
Doobie-doo-bar.
All right. So
sorry.
Let's break down each player. 4 Downs brought to you by our friends at Double D Piping.
Come on, guys, it's game time.
4 Downs. Can you count? 4 Downs. 1, 2, 3, 4. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, David points out that losing Freddie Villone and Cameron Carr has hurt on quality guard depth. Dubar was not sufficient to replace them. And I'm sorry, that was a slightly off topic. I clicked on the wrong one. So Brandon said, we have post players, ? In that regard, what did you, before we break down each individual post player, and please hit that thumbs up button. Take a second. It means a lot for the channel. Caleb, what did you expect out of Tennessee's post heading into the tournament?
I expected Felix Okpara to be able to get you 10 points under the basket with size disadvantages. And I expected Igor Milicic Jr. to be an inside-out player who can drive to the rack, score from the post, and score from 3. And as of right now, he can't do any. And so, they're just absent on offense. And this is going to come back to bite them. I got to be honest. They are not an inside-out team. That's fine. They don't have to be an inside-out team, but they got to be more than what they've been. And it's very – I can't believe I'm saying this. It's very antithetical to the way Rick Barnes has traditionally coached. He wanted guys that can establish leverage under the basket. A guy like Toby Owaka last year who will bang you inside. And this is just not happening this year. And it doesn't have to be great. It's significantly worse than it needs to be.
Is your issue more defensively or offensively or both?
Offensively, because defensively, Felix Okpara can do what he needs to do.
Great. Okay. Just making sure. Let's go ahead and get to 4 Downs. We'll break down each individual player. Tennessee in the post offensively, I don't want to say struggled against Wofford. They just didn't go to it.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, Coop. Thank you.
Coop here. 1st down.
By the way, I spoke to Coop yesterday. He is not giving up football and opening the smokehouse. He is waiting for the NFL draft, and he's continuing to work. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. Felix Okpara, what did you think of his play on 1st down?
I thought, again, great defensively. He took Kyler Filowich out of the game. He was the one player who did his job on defense. Needs to do more on offense. He had 7 points, 5 rebounds, 1 block. He was 3 of 5 from the field. All right, I want to point this out. 3 of 5, you could say that's sufficient. He wasn't asked to do much with Chaz Lanier. But Dave, when you're physical para and you see who's guarding you from Wofford, you should be 5 of 5 from in the paint. You shouldn't be 3 of 5. You should be 5 of 5.
I won't argue with that.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Second down is Igor Milichik Jr. If Dubar's, who we'll get to, been very disappointing, Milichik has at least been disappointing. I don't even want to say somewhat disappointing. I just want to say disappointing, but not very disappointing. Is that fair or is that too harsh?
No, it's fair, and I'm willing to go there too. One, Igor Milichik is soft under the basket. Now, you guys are good, not, I don't want to say you guys. People are going to come back to me, Dave, and what are they going to say? Well, he's a stretch 4. He plays out on the perimeter, and exactly what I said at the beginning of the year. He's a stretch 4, plays on the perimeter, exactly what I said at the beginning of the year. Here's the problem with that. If you're a stretch 4, you need to be able to shoot the 3, right? And guess what Milichik has done from 3 since the start of the SEC tournament?
Not good.
Not good. 1 of 5 versus Texas. 1 of 2 versus Auburn. 1 of 2 versus Florida. 1 of 4 versus Wofford. So he has hit just 1 3-pointer in each of his last 4 games. And Dave, he hasn't hit more than 2 3-pointers in a game since Tennessee's February 11th loss to Kentucky. That was over a month ago. Okay? He has been completely absent from 3. Where is his shooting? He's literally, if you're a stretch 4, then your job is to literally shoot the 3. And he's not doing it.
Now, is it, I guess it is it especially troublesome now? Is it pertinent now? Or is this something you knew for weeks that Tennessee wasn't good in the post? Because I've felt that way for a while.
I knew that they weren't great, but in early February to mid-February, we actually had Jimmy on the show. I thought Felix Opero was turning the corner where with spacing, he would be effective. Because, Dave, if Chaz Lanier is doing what he needs to do, Zakai's Igor is doing what he needs to do, and Igor is actually shooting the ball from 3, Felix then has an advantage one-on-one under the basket. And even if you don't have post moves at that point, if you're athletic, you know you can score, right? It's kind of like if you ISO Blake Griffin with just one person underneath the basket when he's in his prime, he's going to score. And so I think that's what I was expecting. The reason it's not working is Igor is not shooting enough from 3 and he's not hitting enough from 3. And it's kind of a huge issue. So look, the biggest problem, the root problem with this is Igor Milichik Jr. not shooting the ball well from 3. And by the way, guys, I want to point out, it's not like he can't score under the basket. Okay. While he was 1 of 5 from 3 against Texas, he was 4 of 5 in the paint. He took it to the paint. He needs to be a stretch 4 does not mean, I want to make this clear to people. A stretch 4 does not mean you're just a shooter. A stretch 4 means you're a 4 who can score it from all different angles of the court. Like, Dirk Nowitzki still had to score under the basket, didn't he? Yeah. Like, if you have to be able to score under the basket. And so a stretch 4 is a guy that needs to that doesn't mean that you're just a 3-point shooter. It means you score from all levels of the court.
No, I agree. Now, let's get to third down. I'm going to shift the order a little bit.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Matt says, can someone please tell me what the personal issue with DeBar is that he shut his season down? Well, I mean, listen, there's a difference. And yes, there was a death in the family, but there's just a difference in how we handle this as opposed to how we did 20 years ago. So now you make reference. I don't know, actually, if it's better or worse the way we handle it now. We refer to personal issues. We refer sometimes, as Will did, mental health. You know what we would have said 20 years ago? That guy just stinks. We wouldn't have gone in that direction. Might have defended him a little bit. I can't really recall a player that I knew. Obviously James Pierce, but we've reported that. He had a very serious bad thing happen in front of him. And it affected him throughout the year, especially early in the year. Dubar's death in the family, I think, affected him. Listen, when bad stuff happens, people can go off the rails sometimes mentally a little bit, and they get down or they do dumb things. And I think he got down. I think it's as simple as that, Caleb. I want to make sure that we're not disparaging him in any regard, because I don't think he did anything wrong. I think he's a guy who's dealing with some stuff.
No, I agree. And here's the thing. And this is just the nature of being a public figure. and this is one of the things that bothers me with athletes sometimes. You accept it when you're a public figure, and I'm not here to pile on Darlington Dubar, but I do have to point this out. Sometimes it feels like they want to have their cake and eat it too, and here's what I mean by that. If they're dealing with something personal, they'll tell you it's not your business, which that's fine. You're right. It's not my business. That's fine. But it is my business how you play on the court or on the field, because we talk about that.
Right.
If it's affecting how you play on the court or the field and you don't want me to know about your personal life, then all I can do is talk about how you play on the court. But then you want me to be sympathetic to how you're playing on the court because of this personal issue you're dealing with, but you don't want to share your personal issue. Well,
Right.
I'm sorry. That's not how this works. I mean, that's just not.
And Chris Lofton went through a season of that. He
Yeah,
went through a season
exactly.
of people questioning him when he knew he had cancer.
Right. And he didn't want to share it. And that's fine. That was his prerogative. That's his business.
Right.
He didn't want to share it.
The difference between Dubar and Lofton in the two situations is that when somebody passes away in your family, you know about it because he spent time away from the team and you knew it. You didn't have to know about Lofton's cancer. Plus, here's the other difference. Lofton had built up so much equity that if he had a flat senior year, and it wasn't awful by any stretch of the imagination.
He set the record for 3 points made in a season.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
he just didn't seem to have the same giddy up that he had before. And I agree with Dylan completely, who says we have to remember these are college kids still developing, and having something personal happen will take a little longer than an adult. I mean, heck, I've had something happen to me personally recently. It took me a while to work through. I mean, Caleb, that's just the human condition.
I agree. It is. All I'm saying is that, and that's one, if it was going to affect your play this much, you should have redshirted. You should have redshirted for a year.
I totally agree. Now, here's the other thing. Do you get off on the wrong foot with the coaching staff because you're not dealing with a personal issue well, and they say, I just kind of like the scholarship back? Rick Barnes doesn't seem like that type.
Rick Barnes would never do that.
A lot of coaches would. As a matter of fact, I will go ahead and go on record that about 4 of the last 5 coaches at Tennessee would have.
Oh, of course. I mean, well, 3 of the 5. I actually, whatever you think about Conzo Martin, I think he cared about his players on a real personal level.
Okay, I'll give you Conzo.
Yeah.
Who are the last 5 players? Let's go ahead and dive into that.
Last 5 coaches?
Yeah, coaches. Kevin O'Neill, Jerry Green.
You're going back beyond 5.
Okay, O'Neill would have. I'm not counting Tyndall. O'Neill would have. Jerry Green would have just let the player decide. Just call me when you get a chance to let me know. And then Conzo probably wouldn't. Pearl would have. Buzz Peterson would have, because he did that.
Yeah, Buzz Peterson
was another player.
Buzz Peterson dismissed players for the pettiest stuff because he was trying to make a point that he was bringing discipline into the program. I think it was like Harris Walker and Terrence Woods that he dismissed the minute he got on campus.
Well, he told me once that he was running the guy extra hard in practice, and I said, "You think you can turn him into a player?" And he goes, "Well, that'll run him off. Sometimes you want the scholarship back." I mean, that was flat out what he said.
You got to talk like Buzz, though. What is it? We're going to try to run them all. Sometimes we want the scholarship back.
North Carolina accent. Makes me think of eastbound and down.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Cade Phillips.
This is going to be kind of a hot take, but I think he should be playing more. I think I agree he takes a little bit long to get set, and he does have foul trouble issues. I mean, he gets in foul trouble all the time, but he played 12 minutes last night and he had 6 points, and all from the free throw line. Went 6 of 8 from the free throw line. He plays aggressive, and it's just kind of welcome to watch somebody for Tennessee play aggressive in the post, isn't it? Yep. So I think Cade Phillips should be out there more. He really does have to fine tune his skills. I don't think Rick Barnes meant for Cade Phillips to play a lot this year. He's had to because JP Estrella went down with the season-ending injury. We're gonna look, if Tennessee gets bounced out early, this is going to be a complete like what if scenario, because we're going to be like, what if JP Estrella didn't get hurt, and what if Cameron Carr didn't leave? And I mean, we're talking Tennessee would have been a 1 seed in an easy path to the national title. So I'm actually a fan of the way Cade Phillips plays. Just because of what Igor Milicic is not doing and Rick Barnes' principles. If I'm Rick Barnes, I'd start Cade Phillips over Igor.
Dylan says, I like Cade, but sweet Jesus, make your free throws. I don't know if it's sacrilegious or not. I hope not, because I just love the way that sweet Jesus sounds.
Well, he made his free throw. He went 6 of 8 yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not bad.
No,
I mean, yeah, it's not that. Look, Cade Phillips, I think, is a very, very good, solid player, and you're right, he is kind of like Fulke. Fulkerson, one of the problems with Fulkerson was that, like, once SEC teams devised a defense for him, he was a little more one-dimensional, but that wasn't his fault because Tennessee never should have built an offense around him. Honestly, he was meant to be complementary, not have the offense go through him.
Yep.
And I think they did that.
Go ahead. Portions of the program brought to you by Work Trucks, all about trucks. Trucks are actually available. Trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting about time. Work Trucks saves you time with us back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed. If you're a contractor, no Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Why risk chancing your future in business on the wrong piece of equipment? Work Trucks with an X, LLC will find the perfect truck outfitted, make sure it fits your needs to a T. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. In 2 minutes, Georgia getting players arrested. We'll change gears a bit. And I said players, as in plural, as in this week. 2 in a week. Seriously. 2 minutes. Off the Hook Sports, the show represented by Banks and Jones. Tell you what, Georgia's football team could use Banks and Jones. Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Criminal defense. Bulldogs. Yes, criminal defense, personal injury, divorce. They'll take care of you. Banksandjones.com. Banksandjones.com as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer, new and used on Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, TedRussellLincoln.net, TedRussellFord.net. The entire selection is there online. 2 minutes. That may be enough time for another Georgia football player to get arrested. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire.
Guy with a lot of jobs, but this one is the most important.
This is not government work. As such, I treat it with care and attention.
Until someone else calls. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. Banksandjones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Blind Squirrel Sports. Your Bulldogs can't keep that right foot up. And I will admit that I can empathize. That's part of the reason I switched from an Audi S5 to a Jeep, because maybe that Audi S5 was a little too fast. So I got that Jeep, by the way, from Ted Russell Ford Lincoln at TedRussellFord.net, TedRussellLincoln.net, East Tennessee's largest all-volume dealer. Do you ever get those surveys, Caleb, like from someone and it's annoying, but then sometimes you get that survey and you've gotten terrible service and you're like, hell yeah, I'm going to tear into you.
Yes.
I got one of those. Like during the break, I was using the restroom and it popped up on my email on my phone, and I'm so excited to rip them. It's like at noon as soon as we're done. It's an insurance company that, yes, I don't know if it's going to help at all, but I'm just going to tear into them. That'll be
Well, insurance company. Okay, so are you the next Luigi Mangione?
I don't know who that is.
I'm kidding. He's the guy who shot the insurance executive in New York.
Oh yeah, he's a interesting looking feller. All right, so Blind Squirrel Sports knows it's coming. Caleb, bank on it. Georgia is out of control. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Life made better. They are out of control. Caleb, give us an update. 2 players in 1 week arrested, both for vehicle issues, and Georgia has a long, long history of that under Kirby Smart.
Yeah, so this all started on Monday when freshman offensive lineman Marcus Easley. Yeah, freshman offensive lineman.
Hey, you got to get him going fast, young.
I know, right? He was involved in a vehicle crash on Monday. That was all that was legally reported. But On 3 did some investigative work, and it turns out homeboy crashed into a house.
Oops.
Yeah, crashed into a house.
I've never done that. That looks really a lot like a house I used to live in. But anyway, yeah, so he pops out of the car, and yeah, you're like, oh, you're that freshman that I followed in the message boards and recruiting. Why'd you hit my house and stuff? That's in a neighborhood too. So
it is in a neighborhood.
Understand how you lose control, because in a neighborhood, I do drive fast from time to time, but when I'm in a neighborhood, I'm pretty conservative, because it just would be awful if a kid jumped out in front of you. I mean, so I don't understand how you lose control to that degree in a neighborhood. He looks like a total doofus after seeing that picture.
Here's where it would have been easier to lose control. Back in the 2000s when the car had the CD players, and you like I know people that would reach down like this and like try to find a CD while they're driving. You could lose control if you do that and not realize it. But okay, so.
But you're talking to somebody who's driving a tractor when he was 8 years old. So by the time I got my driver's license, I was pretty comfortable driving.
Okay, well, you also grew up a little more rural than a lot of these kids, so you probably have a little more experience driving, we should say.
True. Blind Squirrel says, when folks talk about the culture issue, and Blind Squirrel follows Georgia, I can't take offense nor disagree.
Well, so after Easley, he's suspended indefinitely. Kirby Smart's taking a stance. Well, Georgia sophomore wide receiver Nitro Tuggle, not to be outdone. Okay, they gotta outdo each other. Nitro Tuggle was booked in the Athens Clark County Jail after he was arrested early Thursday on misdemeanor charges of speeding and reckless driving. Apparently, he was speeding. He was driving the car to the max speed it could hit.
Because there's a governor on most cars. I will tell you that my governor on my Audi S5 was 145 miles an hour. Do I know that from finding out, or did the dealership tell me that? I'll just let you decide. But you have two more instances of young men getting in trouble. And I will say this, I was joking earlier, how could you get that out of control? Listen, you're a much better driver the older you get until you get to a certain age and you start to slip downhill. God knows it's the case with my mother. So, but Caleb, the max speed to me screams, and I don't know if you know where that is, but that route between Atlanta and Athens is basically made for racing.
That's what people do it all the time for fun.
Yeah, that's why to me the first one was more troubling because you're in a neighborhood. So if you haven't been on that road, it's essentially like a drag strip. It's very straight until you get close to Athens, or probably 15 miles. Blind Squirrel, you might be able to help me. Derek says the fact this is happening in neighborhoods had me thinking that they need to address this crime, shaking my head like selling drugs in a school area. Stop recklessly driving in dense housing areas.
They need to add to this crime, he said.
I totally agree. I think that should be a different level.
So, like, this is, I mean, I agree. We don't know, again, we don't know if this person was speeding yet, the first one. All we know is, I'm actually more on the Nitro Tuggle thing, because, like, they've already had the issues of reckless driving. This kid runs into a house on Monday, and Nitro Tuggle decides, I'm going to max speed my car on Thursday.
And you really have to push it to find out where the governor is. That's what they told me at the dealership. That you really, I mean, it takes a while to get from, let's say, 90, which is speeding significantly, to 145, which may have been where the governor kicked in on my car.
Yeah, and if you put wings on the car, I wonder if it would lift off the ground at that point a little bit.
Possibly. Or it could push down closer to the ground and drop better than ever, which might be why some people do it, according to the dealership that I bought it from, not from personal experience.
Okay. Well,
I'm going to be real clear on that.
Let's talk about this with Kirby Smart, because I'm going to say this. Kirby Smart, for the most part, has tried to handle these things the way you would handle them as isolated incidents. But, I mean, are they random, or is there a culture problem? And I want to ask Dave, like, now I'm thinking Carson Beck took his NIL, like, remember he flashed him getting a Lambo for NIL after he got his NIL deal? Is it something with NIL ties in Georgia where they're promising people racing cars or fast cars, sports cars? Is that part of the NIL deal?
There's clearly a culture issue there, and it could end up at some point costing Kirby Smart his job, and he knows that. If one of these kids is driving a vet at 145 miles an hour, the governor kicks in and they get scared, because I have been told that it's very scary when the governor kicks in because the engine shuts down. That's what the dealership told me. I don't know from personal experience. But when it kicks in, it can scare you, and then you can react poorly and you could plow into a school bus. At that point, Kirby Smart has to go.
Well, and this is an issue with college. Okay, here's where NIL maybe goes haywire a little bit. Good or bad, I'm not like one of those, those old school dudes, like, when you mess up, you got to get kicked off the team. Discipline, baby. Those people, like, and I'm not that. I'm not that guy, okay? But there is an issue on the other side now. Are there any real consequences if you get kicked off a team anymore in the NIL and transfer portal age? Can't you just go to another school?
True.
I mean,
But here's the thing. Steve Spurrier now with the transfer portal, it's easier for those players to go somewhere. And I'm not saying speeding is bad as hitting a woman, but Steve Spurrier had the philosophy that if you struck a woman, you were off the team. It was a one strike and you're out policy. I think it's time for Kirby Smart to hold a press conference and say, from now on, these laws, if they're violated, I don't care who you are, it's a one strike and you're out penalty. Because it's going to end up costing him his job, Caleb.
I totally agree. And to the point, because Dylan brings it up, speeding can be worse than hitting a woman. I mean, Jalen Carter did kill somebody. Like, it's like if you kill somebody, it can be worse.
That was, at least that was kind of early in the rash of issues. I mean, you reacted as best you could then, but now you need to react in a different way. I mean, it's been nearly a dozen issues, hasn't it?
Oh, it was a dozen issues like when we started talking about this, and that was 2 years ago. So it's worse now. I think I agree. And here's the thing. I think Kirby Smart can have here's what you have to do. you can. One of the things coaches do where the program really gets derailed is they try to pretend they don't have a culture problem. Don't you agree? That's the thing that really hurts them. Kirby Smart should come out, call a press conference and say, look, I've tried everything. We do have a culture problem. Kids aren't listening to me. And he basically just say, that's it. I know this is unfair to some of these kids when I let others back on campus after messing up. I don't care. Any more driving incidents, you're off the team. I can't. And basically say to them, and basically say to the kids at that point, and if you complain to me about, and because one kid will be childish and go, well, you didn't get this person off the team. Why are you going to kick me off the team? Someone's going to do that.
Drop that voice. That's the most annoying of
That's
them.
trying to make them sound annoying. Okay, but you know what kid's going to say that?
Mission accomplished.
That was that was the Fulmer issue, wasn't it? When he started trying to punish kids, they would be like, well, you didn't punish this person. Yes. And it's like, in my mind, it's like, grow the hell up. That's life. Sometimes you're going to get punished for things.
I don't understand how the freshman who hit the 2,500 square foot rancher in a neighborhood isn't off the team already. He would have been my example. I don't care if he was a 5-star, an 8-star, whatever he was, he would have already been off the team. The other guy, was he a player? Because the freshman
he had like 8 catches last year. He was a sophomore, so I think he expected to take a large role. Here's where you really go. Because Kirby Smart can do this, Dave. I don't even think Josh Heupel can do this. Kirby Smart can do this. Doesn't Kirby Smart at least have the leverage to strike the fear of God in the players to say, hey, you do this, I'm going to kick you off the team. And yeah, you might go find another college, but I'm the most accomplished coach in the sport right now, and I have many NFL ties, and I can blackball you from the NFL if you do this.
I don't think you would tell them that, but I think you might do that. And it's
so
funny
too.
that you bring up that time with Philip Fulmer. What he said about Jason Witten really hurt him with some NFL scouts. He was upset that Jason Witten left early.
Oh, I've heard that. And Jason Witten didn't even do anything wrong. So that was a real snake move by Fulmer, honestly, to do that.
Not just hurt, it's a fact. So that really hurt Fulmer with the players more than anything. That was more significant than his standing with the NFL scouts. The players knew that. The players knew how the speaking of transition to the NFL, the Kelly Washington, Dante Stallworth thing was, but I don't want to get sidetracked. I want to stick on this, and that is bank on it. If Kirby Smart doesn't address this in the offseason, it will cost him his job. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life.
All right, Caleb, final word on this. Do you think it could seriously end up costing him his job? Because you're talking about perhaps, well, no, not perhaps. He's the most, with Saban gone, he's the most accomplished coach in the country, right? Nobody else has 2 championships, right?
No, Dabo has 2 championships, but Kirby has more players in the NFL than Dabo. Not to mention the fact that Kirby has more NFL ties because of his career as a defensive coordinator.
We just know that Kirby's better than Dabo at this point in his career. So
right.
The best coach in the nation, fair? Both
fair,
by
totally fair.
accomplishments and what he's done
Yes.
with the contest.
I think I agree it could lose him his job. I just think he's in a more precarious situation than we realize with a lot of schools and coaches. And I'm going to say this too, and this is a challenge to the public. We got to stop asking football coaches to do some things that the legal system should be doing. And here's what I mean. I think we have a mass incarceration problem in this country of people doing jail time for petty, victimless crimes like smoking weed. We also have an under-incarceration country of people killing people with traffic violations and not getting out and getting out of prison in a year. Whatever you want to say, Tennessee has had their fair share of traffic violations. And I'm going to invoke the name. You've interviewed him. Dwayne Goodrich did his time, right? Like Dwayne Goodrich did his time, and he accepts that he had to do time, didn't he? He accepts that he should have done time for what he did. The reason this is an issue is you have people. You have states where people don't do time for the harm that they cause. Somebody should have been doing prison time for what happened with the Jalen Carter situation. Henry Ruggs is doing 20 years in prison. Vegas in Nevada. Nevada's known is a live and let live state. Vegas started as a live and let live state. You want to gamble, you want to get prostitutes, you want to go get high, do whatever, do it. But you better not harm somebody else. And when Henry Ruggs harmed somebody else, you better not even put their life at risk against their will. And when he did that, they gave him the harshest sentence. It's time for the legal system to step up in this, Dave. And like if you're reckless driving in a neighborhood and you hit a house, I don't care if it didn't hurt anybody. He could have. And the fact that he could have should be treated the same.
Yeah. I mean, what if a kid's going out front to pick something off the front porch or check the mail or, that's just all kinds of scary. I had a very similar, I don't want to say it's similar necessarily, but I owned a landscaping company when I was in college. We had somebody in a neighborhood that plowed through a brick mailbox and it threw the bricks literally, Caleb, like 30 yards and 30 feet. Sorry. And had we been in the front, which we started in the back and then we were going to work in the front, one of us would have been killed. I just don't have any doubt about that. Turns out she was an at-home nurse and she was drugged up beyond. This is 9:00 in the morning. And she's like, please just pull the fender off the tire and I'll be fine. I'm like, no, you're not going to drive away from this. The car is destroyed. So it was, yeah, I mean, that's not a place where you're looking around. When if I go to a big city or I even go to Knoxville, I look both ways when I cross the road on Henley Street or Gay Street. I don't have my guard up in a neighborhood. I shouldn't have to.
No, you absolutely shouldn't. And even if you do, like, because of these streets, you don't always see, if a car is barreling down, you can look both ways and you still won't cross the street in time before a car hits you. And if you're in your house, if you're in your, I mean, this is now it's a freshman. I get it, but it's like, it reminds me of, do you remember Alden Smith in the NFL, Dave? How many times did he have to like put people's lives at risk before they finally cracked down on him?
A lot.
And it's like, yeah, and Michael Phelps. I'm sorry. Michael Phelps kept getting in trouble too. The Olympic committee guy, he should have spent some time behind bars once I found out he was going 85 in the BW in the Baltimore tunnel. That's 45 speed limit. That he should have done time behind bars. And I think a few of these Georgia players, some of the stuff they've done, if you're endangering lives like this, it's time for a zero tolerance policy. Yep. Somebody's already been killed.
Well, if I'm Kirby Smart, I'm not doing it because of my moral compass. I'm doing it because it could save my job and my career. The UPS store Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, a wide range of products and services locally owned and operated. The link is right down below. So, Caleb, the Lady Vols, let's change genders for a moment. Not you and me, but in sports we talk about. The Lady Vols enter the tournament. What are fair expectations for the Lady Vols? Give you a couple of different options: Final Four, Elite Eight, Sweet 16, or they've already reached expectations given what they had this season and a new coach in Kim Caldwell.
I think if they've already reached expectations from the beginning of the year. We thought there was going to be at least one NIT season, and they made the NCAA tournament. I'm going to say round of 32. They get to the round of 32. I don't think they can complain, given what they've dealt with. They're going to get to the round of 32 if they beat if they get to the round of 32, and they get bounced out by Ohio State. There's no shame in that, losing at Ohio State. I don't really think it's fair to expect them to go to the Sweet 16, Elite Eight, or Final Four this year. I don't know if you tell me I'm wrong on that, but I don't think it's fair to expect Kim Caldwell to go to the Sweet 16 her first year at Tennessee, given the fact that she inherited at least 4 players not cut out to run this system.
Well, I think you're seeing Kim Caldwell learn how to be a better coach. I think that it was like everything is going great after they beat UConn. So she poured on more gas on the fire. She poured on more steam, whatever you want to use. And I think she ran this team into the ground with her up and down practices and her up and down style, which will eventually be Tennessee's style. And they're going to win at a high level there. I believe that. But you need a little bit more depth. And I think that Kim Caldwell continued to run her stuff as she ran it last year when she had her players. So I think the expectations after that UConn game should have been easily Sweet 16. But now I feel like she's probably learned that you can't push as hard as she has. So I guess I would alter the expectations considering they stumbled down the stretch. And I will say my expectations are round of 32. Now, as of next year, the expectations moving forward with the Lady Vols program and the support they get is Final Four every year. That's my expectations.
Oh, I agree with you on that. And I think you're right. I think she went harder after the UConn game. It's also true that, there was just a word down thing because it reminds me of in 2005, 2006, Bruce Pearl's first year. We talked about that. They got to the top 10 and then they really wore down in the end because they weren't very deep. Bruce Pearl said at the time, and he admitted it. He said, look, I couldn't practice this team. He couldn't even practice them in March because they were just so tired, and he knew they were tired. I wonder if Kim Caldwell took the same approach. I mean, if they're this gassed, she probably should have stopped a few practices to keep them healthy, but to keep them fresh. But maybe that's not her principle. That's fine. I think Kim Caldwell is going to have 2 first years. I said that from the start because she's got her recruits coming in next year, but that's half the roster and they're all freshmen. So they need, there's going to be a little bit of growing pains. But I do think they're going to make a splash and a deep run next year. And then year 3, I'm seeing potential national championship. But
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but like this year, round of 32 is totally fine.
Do you agree with me that she made a mistake this year and she's going to make mistakes? She's still a young coach.
Yeah, she's going to make mistakes. But I do believe this, and this is, and actually we'll take this to football real quick because we're going to go all the way back to last year when she was hired. Remember John Adams asked her the question if her style could translate to this level?
Yes.
And Dave, what's the biggest thing that gets a football X's and O's guru who's hired at the SEC after being successful at other schools? Don't you think the biggest thing that results in them flaming out is they don't know how to adjust their offensive schemes for the SEC? Like, don't realize they're kind of in a different level, different playing field.
Right. Okay.
She did that. She did adjust in the personnel she got. She actually adjusted immediately. And she was very aware of the conference she was in. I mean, my best example of that, it's kind of crazy to bring up now, but amidst all the things we criticize him for, Butch Jones did have an offensive scheme. And it worked for him at 2 places. He got to Tennessee. He didn't change his scheme at all, did he? He didn't change his philosophy or anything.
No, he did not. And there were situations close to the goal line where they didn't have a player with their hand in the dirt on the offensive line. That to me was bizarre. But getting back to Caldwell, let's keep this in mind. If she did make a mistake by keeping her foot on the gas too long, too hard, no Georgia reference here, please. She has only been a head coach since 2016. So listen, I'm sure it takes takes a couple of years to kind of feel super comfortable in any difficult job. This is a really difficult job. And she's less than a decade in. So you're going to see her make mistakes. You're going to see her improve. And I think she's a fantastic hire. I just think that she probably stuck with the hand she was dealt a little too long when it was time to, even if it cost you a regular season game or two, to ease up a little bit and make sure you're fresh for the tournament. Now, she is fortunate, and maybe she's factoring this in. The women get a longer break in between the regular season and the postseason. So maybe she's factored that in there, Caleb, in terms of I could push it really hard to get the best seed possible, and then we'll get the longer break and we'll be good. Maybe that's what she's gambling on. And if so, she could be proven right.
Yeah, and that could be the move. Maybe the limping down the stretch too. I mean, let's just point this out. Look, she did just have a baby. That takes him in the middle of the season. That can take a mental toll. And, there's postpartum. Maybe she didn't, what if she wanted to be, I'm not psychoanalyzing her, but this isn't, well, okay, maybe I am. But what I'm saying is that look, I just had a baby. I know this much. It's a big emotional roller coaster when it happens. And if you're having to go back on the road and travel all the time and run practices, that can be a lot. She had to go straight back to work. I took 2 weeks off, to bond. So maybe
I actually wrote a story, a Tennessee football recruiting story in the delivery room.
Look at you working, You know, they never.
My editor showed up to check out my little one and my son and said, "Wait, you sent a story in this morning." Like,
you know, they never talk about what the man has to deal with in the delivery room. It's always about what the woman has to deal with. We get a chair.
That's right.
And you know,
and I'm transcribing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I hated transcribing.
So much. I mean, I'm just saying, ladies, y'all have to go through pregnancy, but we have to hear about what it was like for y'all to go through pregnancy, and that's way harder.
And on our way out the door, we reported actually that Nico had gained some weight, and I think he needs to be 230 by football season. And I don't think 225 is okay. I think it needs to be 230. So we reported, I remember because it happened to be on my birthday, he was listed at 206 as a true freshman. He says he's up to 215. Still think it's going to be a constant challenge for him to carry weight, just as wiry and like that. If he ever gets up to 240, like when he's in the NFL, if he's that kind of talent, I still think he could be. He's going to be just really, really difficult to defend all around. But he definitely needs to be 225. And I would tell him he needs to be 230 for the beginning of the season, because you're going to lose. He's probably going to lose 5 pounds during preseason camp. So he needs to be 230 August 1, in my opinion. He is at about 220 right now. He finished last season at 215. He was listed at 206 as a true freshman. Let me be clear. 195 as a recruit. Told reporters last week that he's 220 after finishing the season at 215. So I'm encouraged by the fact that it appears as if he's not losing weight and he's at least holding weight during the season. That sometimes is the greatest challenge, Caleb. You can, some guys that are wiry like him can drop weight.
Yes, no, you're right. That's true. And look, he's always going to probably be a little on the lighter side. Look, Hendon Hooker was only 6'4". He was only 218. Now he was 6'4". So I think 225 would be okay. But you're right, if he's going to be listed at 225, he probably needs to be closer to 230 going into fall camp. But look, the summer camp will help him get there.
You know, the height thing though, man, I've stood next to both of those dudes. And what's Nico listed as height wise?
6'6".
Okay. And Hendon's listed at 6'4".
Yeah.
Well, if there's just 2 inches of difference in them, then I'd be stunned. I mean, standing next to them, one dude seems a lot bigger. One dude seems like if he wanted to, he could bulk up and play tight end. The other dude seems like he's a quarterback or a receiver. I mean, just I don't know. I mean, maybe it's frame, maybe it's just my perception at the particular time. But one dude seems a lot bigger than the other, and that's Nico. All right, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. You're right, Matt. 5 pounds isn't enough. Have a fantastic day, everyone. We broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio, tedrussellford.net, tedrusselllincoln.net, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. That's a great point, Derek. Hendon had a 24-year-old bone structure, so he was fully developed. Okay, good point. So that's why I think Nico to me looks like a guy who's going to play in the NFL at 240 if he's going to play in the NFL. Otherwise, he's going to get broken in half. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone. Caleb, are you doing a post-game show on Saturday?
Yes, I will be doing a post-game show on Saturday, depending on what happens, win or lose.
I think I will join you. Now, what have you heard in terms of, do we have a tip time and do we have a point spread yet?
Tennessee is going to play UCLA Saturday at 9:40 Saturday night, and they are favored by, the line has dropped to 1 point. Tennessee's now favored by 4.5.
That'll be Caleb Solo. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Live